Hey fellow backpackers, Vegan Packer here. I love my Thermarest Neo Air X-Lite pad. It's the best, it's super comfortable. The one thing I don't like about it so much is the valve. I got the pump sack for it, and honestly, this connection, it's kind of hokey. It's this plastic ring that you kind of slip over it. Sometimes when you really start to pump it up, it slips off. And then because the valve lets air go back out when you're filling up the pad, once you get it exactly how you want it, you have to kind of seal off the bag and try to twist the valve. The bag gets all wrapped around your hand. I just don't find it to be a very good way to take care of the situation. Then I found an Exped Air Pillow Ultralight, and I really like that. It's pretty comfortable, it's very light. So I gave a try with the Exped pump sack, and I really like that. And it's great. The thing that's great about this valve is you open it up and the air stays in. Only when you want it to come out, you can push a little pin, or you can lift the little flapper out and change it so that the air will leak out. But this thing is totally solid for when you don't want the air to come out, and totally solid for when you do want the air to come out. So now here's my situation. I've got two pump sacks, I've got two different brands of products, and I've got to figure out a situation so that I can make everything work together in the lightest package possible. I don't like using my breath to inflate any of the products that I have, and I'm a real big believer in the pump sack system. I also use the pump sack as a dry sack inside my backpack, so I don't really mind a little tiny bit of weight to carry things along. I started thinking about how to make something that would work with everything, and I think I've come up with the perfect solution. I'm going to show you a less than 1/2 ounce solution that will make it so that you can use your Exped pump sack to work for both your Exped products and your Thermarest valves, and it will have the big added bonus of working in such a way so that when you pump up your X-Lite, you don't have to worry about air escaping while you're trying to close the valve. Okay, so here's what you're going to need for this project. First, we have two different sizes of tubing, plastic tubing that has two different diameters. I have a thinner one, which is a 1/2 inch on the inside and 5/8 on the outside. And then we have a larger size diameter, which has the same 5/8 on the inside and 7/8 on the outside. And that's important because we're going to need to put one piece of tubing on top of the other in order to make a fit. Then you're going to want to have some kind of cutting device, like I'm using household shears in this particular case, but you know, whatever you have around might work, like an X-Acto knife, that kind of thing. Some type of adhesive, I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. I would suggest pliers, or if you happen to have a tie wrap adjuster and tensioner, that would be even better. Plastic tie wrap, some emery cloth or sandpaper, and a light gauge file. The two stars of this whole thing, besides the plastic tubing, are this one-way valve that I purchased off of Amazon, and I'll put a link to it in the video. It comes with, and I'm not sure how well you can see it, but right here, about 1/4 inch from the edge, it's got a little barb so that when you slip it onto a hose, it will stay on there and not come off, you know, super easily. The problem is that it comes with it on both ends, and we don't want that. So what you're going to do is you're going to use your file and your sandpaper, and you're going to go on the side where the inlet is, and you're going to want to test this to make sure which side is the inlet and which side is the outlet on this one-way valve. And you're going to want to file off this little barb that was here, which I've already done ahead of time, and then just kind of sand it so it's smooth. And I'd also suggest right on the edge here that you taper this a little bit with the file, because you're going to be taking that and connecting it into this gray conical tapered washer. This is what's going to sit inside of your Exped inflation sac, where the Schnozzel valve is. Okay, so this is how it's going to fit together, and that's why it will fit on the other side that has the barb, but as you work it in, it starts to really make it too tight. So I would suggest filing that little bit off the edge. And just on the inlet side, not on the outlet side, because the hoses that you're going to put there, you're going to want to stay. All right? After you've sanded down and filed off the edge on the inlet side of this barb end of the valve that's one way, you're going to want to take a section of the smaller diameter tube, and I've already cut it, and put it on the outlet side. That's the side with the barb, and make it about the same length as the plastic housing that's going to be a connection. Then you're going to want to take some of this thicker tube and slip it over that so that the thinner tube nests inside of the thicker tube. And I've already done that here, so I'll show you. Again, I'm not sure how well this comes out in the video, but inside of there is the thinner walled tube nested inside the thicker walled tube. Really, the best way to do it is to take the thinner walled tube and slip it onto your one-way valve first, and then put the larger diameter tubing over that. But it doesn't matter, just as long as you get them both in there, and then if you need to push it in or do whatever you need to do to kind of make that flush against the end. Now, as you have this on the outlet side, if I pulled on this right now, the whole thing will just come right off, and that's what we don't want. That's where our tie wrap is going to come into play. You're going to take the tie wrap and put it on. And you're going to tighten it down, and you want to do that so that it has the tie wrap resting just below the edge of the barb that's going to catch on the tubing. This way you don't have to worry about the plastic tubing coming off when you pull this whole thing off of your connection. It just makes it a little more secure. You could throw in a little bit of that adhesive sealant if you wanted to, but I just don't find that it's necessary, and I'm trying to do whatever I can to avoid any added weight, and also to make it so that I can change this if I ever need to later. Okay, so as this sits right now, this is not secure enough, and I could still pull it right off. So if you happen to have a tie wrap tensioner, that'd be great. In this case, I'm just going to use these vice grips to crank this down a little bit more. That's totally solidly on there now. It won't even turn around anymore. I'm going to cut off this excess here. Now, what I would advise is that afterwards you get a sharp knife, an X-Acto blade or whatever, and trim off this little extra piece that's hanging out from the tie wrap, because this will cut things, including your skin and maybe whatever it is that you might have inside your pack. Next, we're going to take the conical valve and we're going to put it inside the Schnozzel connector. Okay, so what I've done here is I've taken the Schnozzel bag and I've turned it inside out. You'll notice, if you, again, not sure how it comes out in the video, but this is actually tapered on the inside here. And it happens to be a really good fit for this conical washer. So I'm going to take the washer, and I'm just going to, for now, I'm just going to press it in by hand. But this would be the part where I'm going to put some kind of an adhesive on here to make this a little bit more permanent afterwards. I'm not going to put something on there that's so permanent that it will destroy the valve if I needed to ever take it out. Maybe I'll wear this down or something like that over time. So I'm just going to use some kind of a silicone or other adhesive that will hold it on there, but so that if I ever needed to, I could clean it out again. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to push this in here by hand. Now I'm going to turn the bag right side out and show you what it looks like. But you can see from this side, that this is basically completely flush and flat on the back side. Okay, so here is my Schnozzel bag turned right side out, and you can see, I think, that inside of the connector there is that little lighter gray color, and that's the conical washer. It fits below the edge, it's flush, it's actually below flush, and it is a nice tight fit to the inner wall of the inside diameter. And then what I do is I take my hand and I just kind of use it to hold that in place from the back. And right now, again, this is even without any adhesive in there. And I just kind of take this and twist it in a few times to lock it into place. And it's not going to go anywhere. And what I'm going to do now is I'll show you how this works. Let me first, I'm going to inflate the bag. A little bit of air in there, and then check this out, because I know it came through when I was testing it before. Listen, you can actually hear it as the air is coming out. Ready? So that's definitely working. Now let's try it with the Thermarest connector and see if it works on both sides. So normally this would let air come back out into my Thermarest pump sack, which is what I hated. Every time that I would try to inflate the thing, I'd end out taking it, and then after I was done, I'd have to figure out a way to try and twist the whole bag and everything to close the valve. I'd end up losing air, and I was not satisfied with that. With this, my goal is to make it so that once I put the air in, it won't back out and I can close the valve easily. All right, so I'm just taking a little puff here in my pump sack, and I'm going to so you can hear it. It's definitely working. It's not coming off. I can see the bag filling. You hear it? All right, now I can just disconnect this from the schnozzle. Meanwhile, if I have a totally filled mattress that's exactly the tension that I want, I don't have to worry about air escaping. I can just take this, close the valve, and when I'm done, pull the whole thing off, and you are good to go. Okay, so now the all-important question, how much does all of this weigh? So here's the entire connection set up. Here's the conical valve. And I'm getting 4/10 of an ounce, or 11 grams. Now if you want to, you can round it up, because this is before I actually glued in the piece on the Schnozzel pump sack. But again, if you want to call it a half an ounce, I think that that's well worth it to eliminate the hassle. Now you can use your Schnozzel pump sack for both your Thermarest and your Exped products, and you can have the best of all worlds.